always had the best science projects. One year, my brother conducted a research project to determine the filthiest area of his classroom by swabbing various areas and growing bacteria in petri dishes. Interestingly, the classroom floor contained more bacteria than the toilet. Other family members benefited as well from my dad's research background. My cousin from Tennessee spent a summer working in my dad's lab to complete his science fair project. My cousin used garlic to kill cancer cells, and his conclusion was that garlic kills cancer. This experiment won the State Tennessee Science Fair Award. When we entered our teen years, both my brother and I were given opportunities to work in my dad's research lab. Working alongside both postdoctoral students and research assistants, we gained firsthand experience in cancer immunology and anti-aging research. My dad also called upon our editorial skills, and over the years we've assisted him in editing many research articles and books. One summer I was tired of editing papers about immunology research, so instead I took on what I considered the more glamorous job of lifeguarding at a water park. My dad was a very intelligent father, and within a few weeks he asked me, "How much are you making per hour at the water park?" And I responded by telling him that I was making $5. He quickly offered me $10 an hour to come back and work for him. I quit my lifeguarding job that day. Over the years, my brother and I brought many friends home to see my dad or to his medical practice for consultation or treatment. When we lived away from home, there were frequent phone calls to my dad asking his advice for our own ailments or for those of our friends. My dad was such a keen diagnostician that he could actually diagnose someone's illness over the phone just by hearing about the symptoms. Many of our friends benefited from my dad's wise counsel regarding treatment as well as my mom's nutrition advice. We have gained so much knowledge from both parents that my brother and I frequently receive calls even today from friends asking us for medical advice or dietary advice. We always answer, "I'm not a physician, however, I'm almost positive that this is your diagnosis, and here's a treatment plan to follow." I will just double check with my dad to make sure, and we're usually correct. Incidentally, my brother does not work in the medical field either. Speaking of nutrition, my mother's lessons have continued to greatly influence my life. Growing up in the Lau family household, it was a known fact that soda, candy, and other junk food in general were considered contraband items. My brother and I weren't always appreciative of the very healthy diet that we were fed at home. As a teen, my brother once brought RC Cola into the house. My mom was quick to dispense of it, and my brother responded by dumping my mom's $35 a bottle aloe vera juice down the drain. When we were away from the home, we often sampled forbidden foods and felt rotten afterwards. My mom was always experimenting in the kitchen with the newest, greatest recipe that omitted salt, refined sugar, and oil. Sometimes her creations were absolutely delicious, and other times my brother would thumb his nose at the dish and say, "Mom, I can taste those shredded carrots that you tried to disguise in that dish." Overall, though, the diet that we consumed at home greatly benefited our health. We didn't have a single visit to the dentist for cavities due to my mom's restriction on refined sugar, and never suffered from ear infections. As an adult, I am extremely appreciative of the lessons learned in my mom's kitchen. In fact, I have become my own mother with regards to diet and feeding my own children. My kids know how to read labels, and they understand the benefits of eating plenty of fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately for them, I also banned refined sugar and some junk foods from our home. When my son Christopher was 3 years old, he wanted me to buy him some packaged cereal on the grocery store shelf. He insisted that it was healthy because it was advertised to be healthy for your body. When I told him that it had too much sugar, he refused to believe me until we turned the box over and looked at the ingredients and saw that sugar was the first ingredient. When my daughter's elementary school sells candy for fundraisers, Kira can be overheard telling her friends, "I'm going to sell this candy to my grandma. My grandma doesn't eat candy, but she'll buy this from me to use for one of her presentations." Sometimes being the grandchild of a registered dietitian has its drawbacks. One Halloween several years back, after trick-or-treating in our neighborhood, I overheard my son Christopher complaining to his friends and saying, "I can't believe what my grandma did. She gave all of you candy and gave me an apple instead." His friend's dad responded by saying, "That means that she adores you most of all." It gives me great pleasure to introduce the two healthiest, most compassionate, knowledgeable, and intelligent individuals I know, my parents, Ben and Esther Lau.
Thank you, Sherry, again, for your introduction, even though some of your remarks actually embarrass us a little bit, but we will forgive you. I have a friend who is an accountant. A few years ago, he told me, "I admire your job. You see, as an accountant, I see one client and another one is just 1 + 1, 1 + 1 again. But you as a teacher," he referred to me, "you as a teacher, when you teach 10 students, each of these students will teach 10 more people. And then they will teach 100 more people perhaps. So I'm using the addition and you're using the multiplication." Did I say the word right? Multiplication. So he said, "I admire you. You always multiply. I can only just add." In fact, he even calculated. He said, "By now, you probably had taught 100,000 people." I said, no way. Nobody in the school can teach 100,000 people. He said, "Have you taught 1,000 students?" I said, "I think I have throughout these years." He said, 1,000 plus 100 will be 100,000. So even though we're few here, multiplied, what did I say? Plus. I have forgotten about my mathematics long time ago. Even though we're few here, I'm going to be using the multiplication table today. So what I tell you today, you're going to tell 10 more people. Each of you, hopefully, will tell 10 more people. If you can tell more, even better. Our goal is to make this community the healthiest community in this area. We probably can ask Susan Brooke to be our mayor again, because she is the one who promotes healthful living. Now I want to spend a little bit of time to talk to you about metabolic syndrome. Let me see how many of you know something about metabolic syndrome. May I see your hands? Yes, quite a few. That's very, very good. Metabolic syndrome. It's an important topic, I feel. And let's first define what metabolic syndrome is, all right? Metabolic syndrome refers to a group of conditions or signs and symptoms, for that matter, that will greatly increase the risk of a person developing heart attack, stroke, diabetes, and cancer. So it's a syndrome that will increase the risk of people developing killer diseases, if you wish. Now the heart attack, stroke, diabetes, or cancer, as we mentioned, will be what we consider as a killer disease today. Now, how many people in the United States actually have metabolic syndrome? Would you like to make a guess? It's 1 million. actually it's 47 million adults. And it's about 25% of the adults in the United States actually have metabolic syndrome. Some of the children, small number of children also have metabolic syndrome. Now remember, metabolic syndrome, if a person has a metabolic syndrome, there's an increase of risk for that person developing heart attacks, stroke, diabetes, and cancer. How can we recognize metabolic syndrome? I'm going to show you some easy ways to recognize it. There are 5 signs and symptoms. If a person has 3 of these 5 signs and symptoms, that person has the metabolic syndrome. 2 of these signs are very easily recognized. 3 may need some help from our physicians or our hospital or our clinic. Now remember, 5 signs, if a person just needs to have 3 of